Can I get food stamps if I'm living with someone? Many people have asked us this question recently, and today we're going to answer. I'm Nicole from Low Income Relief, where we help millions of people save money and get free stuff. Please note that throughout this video, we will be using the words food stamps, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and SNAP interchangeably since they all refer to the same program. Food stamps rules can be complicated. It's not always straightforward and easy to figure out. This is especially true for adult children who have moved back in with their parents or people who lose their jobs while living with roommates. There are many situations where you may need food stamps, and you may worry that your living situation will keep you from getting them. Fortunately, we have good news. You can usually get food stamps even if you're living with other people, as long as your situation meets certain requirements. The food stamps program bases benefits around households or groups of people who live together and share food together. In order to be a food stamps household, you must do both parts. You must live together, and you must purchase and prepare meals together. When you apply for food stamps, you must include all the information for all members of your household. You will be required to answer truthfully and honestly about who lives with you and whether or not you purchase and prepare food together. So before we can answer the question of, can I get food stamps if I'm living with someone? We first must determine whether or not that someone will be considered part of your household by the food stamps office. Simply put, a SNAP household is defined as a person who lives alone, a person who lives with others but purchases food and prepares meals separately, or a group of people living together who purchase food and prepare meals together. There are only 4 situations where the people who live with you must be counted as part of your household, even if you don't prepare any meals together. First, any child under age 22 who lives with a parent or step-parent must be in the same SNAP household as the parent. Once the child turns 22, they can apply to be their own SNAP household as long as they meet all of the criteria. Second, a child other than a foster child under age 18 who lives with a responsible adult must be in the same household as the adult, regardless of whether or not there is a parental relationship. Third, a legally married couple who lives together must be in the same household, even if they never share food or meals together. Fourth, if unmarried parents have a child together and they all live in the same home, their family unit must be counted as a single household as well. As we evaluate this question, it's important to remember that you do not have to store food separately or use different kitchen appliances. You can share a fridge, freezer, stove, microwave, whatever, as long as you do not buy food together or prepare your meals together. Many people have found it helpful to designate a shelf in the fridge and a special cupboard for their own food, which their roommates do not touch. It's also important to recognize that most states will ask if you usually purchase and prepare food with the people that you live with. In most areas, you can share a meal occasionally and still be separate households. However, if you are shopping together and sharing meals together most of the time, then you are obviously one SNAP household. So why does this matter? It's important to understand how food stamps work so that you can make sure that you're receiving the right amount of food stamps money. Sometimes, small adjustments in your lifestyle can allow you to receive significantly higher amounts of food stamps. We'll discuss this in greater detail throughout this video, so please pay careful attention. Although the idea of a household may sound straightforward, it actually gets very complicated very quickly. So we're going to go over a few situations that you may encounter. If you're renting a room in someone else's home and you do not share food with them, then you would be considered a separate household as long as you purchase and prepare the majority of your meals separately. For example, let's say that Anne and Claire are roommates. They share a 2-bedroom apartment, but they do not share most of their meals. They have an occasional meal together, but it doesn't happen very often because Claire works long hours at a high-paying job. Both Anne and Claire would be considered separate households. Anne did not know this. She applied for food stamps and included Claire's information because she thought she was required to. As a result, her application was denied and she did not get food stamps. She went back and applied again, and now she receives $100 a month because she understands that she is a separate household from Claire. If you are renting a room in someone else's home and you pay that person for at least half of your weekly meals, then you are considered a boarder and that makes you part of their household. If they receive food stamps, the food stamps office may decide that your income should count toward their food stamps allotment. If you do not pay a reasonable amount for food, the food stamps office usually defines a reasonable amount as the maximum per person rate for your household size. Massachusetts Legal Help explains it another way. They said, Janet and Joe are both 25 and married. They move into Janet's mother's house. Her mother, Frances, receives food stamps. Frances does all the shopping and makes all of the meals for Janet and Joe. Janet and Joe pay Frances $300 a month for food and $400 a month for rent. They are considered boarders in Frances's home. Because $300 is less for food than the maximum SNAP benefit amount for a household of 2, Janet and Joe must be part of Frances' SNAP household and their income counts. If Janet and Joe started purchasing and preparing their own food separately, instead of giving Frances money for food, they would not be required to join Frances' SNAP household. They might qualify for their own SNAP benefits depending on their income. Foster families also have a special situation. In most areas, they can choose whether to include or exclude foster children from the family's food stamps determination. If they include them, then any foster care payments received will count toward the household's income. If they exclude them, then those payments will not count toward the household's income, but the household will not receive any food assistance for those children either. Foster care children cannot participate as a separate SNAP household from the foster care household. There are also special rules for people who are elderly and disabled. This section applies to people who are at least 60 years old and disabled, even if they live with others and purchase and prepare their meals together. In order to be eligible for this special consideration, the person must be considered disabled according to SNAP rules. In order to be considered disabled, you will need to verify your disability through participation in Social Security, SSI, RSDI, or a 100% disability award from the Department of Veterans Affairs. If you can prove that you also have a disability considered permanent under the Social Security Act, you may also be able to qualify for this special consideration. If you meet the requirements, then you will be able to be considered your own SNAP household as long as the gross income of the other people you live with does not exceed 165% of the federal poverty level for their household size. For example, let's say Laura is a 65-year-old disabled woman. She lives with her daughter. Her daughter Ellie has 3 children. Laura receives $800 in disability benefits per month, and Ellie earns $2,500 per month. Ellie purchases and prepares all of the food for the family, including Laura. Because Laura is considered elderly and disabled, and Ellie earns less than 165% of the federal poverty level for a family of 4, Laura would qualify for this special situation. She could be a separate SNAP household, and Ellie and her children could apply as a separate SNAP household. This would bring more food benefits into the family overall. There are also special rules for severely disabled people of any age. This section applies to anyone who is too disabled to purchase or prepare their own meals, and therefore needs someone to do that for them. In order to qualify for this special consideration, the applicant must be too disabled to purchase and prepare their own meals, and therefore must have food purchased or prepared separately on their behalf. When these requirements are met, the person can choose to be their own separate SNAP household regardless of the income of the people living with them, unless the person preparing their meals is their spouse, their child under the age of 22, or a co-parent of a shared child that lives in the same household. Disabled people can also appoint an authorized shopper who can use their food stamps card to purchase groceries. It is important that the authorized shopper understands that the card can only be used to purchase food for the person who is approved to receive food stamps, and that the purchases should never be combined with anyone else's. For example, Chris is a 25-year-old with severe MS. His roommate, John, purchases and prepares Chris's meals separately. Chris and John are therefore separate households. However, if Chris was married to John, then they would be required to be considered one household. In most cases, people who meet the following criteria must be considered separate households. People with or without children who are living in drug or alcohol treatment centers. Blind or disabled residents of group living arrangements who apply through the facility's authorized representative. Women with or without children who live in a shelter. Residents of group homes or institutions that provide more than 50% of their meals are usually not eligible for food stamps. If you believe that you are a separate household from the other people that live with you, you should follow these steps. First, contact the office before you apply. Call your state department in charge of food stamps and speak with a caseworker directly. It's important to make sure that you're speaking with a caseworker because they will be more knowledgeable than the people at the front desk. Explain that you live with other people but purchase and prepare your own meals separately. Each state has different rules about how the paperwork should be handled, so it's important to clarify these requirements with your local state department before you apply. Of course, if you already have food stamps, you can contact your caseworker and explain your situation, and hopefully they'll be able to adjust your account for you. Second, clearly state that you are a separate household. When you apply for food stamps, you must make it clear that you are a separate household from the people that you live with. If you apply in person or over the phone, you can tell your caseworker about your situation. Some have chosen to use a paper application and write "C" attached in the household fields and then include a note explaining their situation. Whatever you do, make sure that you make it clear that you are a separate household from your roommates. So obviously, if you're asking, can I get food stamps if I'm living with someone? The answer is yes in most cases. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to our channel so you never miss another way to save money and get free stuff.